My name is Alina, and I am 34 years old. 3 years into my marriage, my husband looked me straight in the eyes and said something that shattered me forever. He said I was barren. Not in an argument. Not in anger. But calmly. Coldly. After avoiding me for 3 long months, he finally said it out loud. You're barren. You can never be a mother. A few weeks later, he invited me to a luxury surprise dinner. I thought it was an apology. Instead, he walked in holding another woman's hand. She was pregnant. And smiling. Everyone at the table froze. I smiled too. And I said, "Congratulations, honey." Then I placed an envelope on the table. When my husband opened it, the color drained from his face. Because in that moment, every lie he ever told ended. If you've ever been betrayed, humiliated, or underestimated, this story is for you. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below where you're watching from. Because what happened after that envelope was opened, no one at that table will ever forget. I met David at a coffee shop 5 years ago. He was charming, ambitious, successful. Everything I thought I wanted. He spoke about family constantly. Children. Legacy. The life we'd build together. I believed every word because I wanted those things too. Our wedding was perfect. 200 guests. Designer dress. Promises that felt eternal. But the pressure started immediately. His mother asking about grandchildren every Sunday dinner. His father making jokes about carrying on the family name. David would laugh and squeeze my hand, saying, "Soon, right, darling?" What they didn't know was that I'd been secretly visiting fertility doctors for months. Test after test. Procedure after procedure. Each appointment felt like failure wrapped in medical terminology. The doctors said there was hope, but it would take time. I never told David because I didn't want him to worry. But hope became months. Months became years. And David's warmth slowly turned to ice. The withdrawal started subtly. He'd come to bed after I was asleep. Leave before I woke up. Our conversations became logistics. Grocery lists. Bill payments. Nothing deeper. When I tried to touch him, he'd pull away like I was diseased. I blamed myself completely. Maybe I wasn't attractive enough anymore. Maybe the stress of trying to conceive had changed me. Maybe I was broken in ways beyond just my fertility. The silence in our house became deafening. I'd sit in our beautiful kitchen, surrounded by expensive appliances, feeling completely empty. Please subscribe if this resonates with you, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. This story gets much darker. The 3 months before he said that word were psychological torture. David would look through me like I was furniture. When friends asked about children, he'd say we're working on it with dead eyes. I started avoiding social gatherings because the pity in people's faces was unbearable. I remember one night, I cooked his favorite meal. Set the table with candles. Wore the dress he'd complimented on our first date. When he came home, he ate in silence, went upstairs, and I heard our bedroom door lock. I sat at that dining table until 3 a.m., wondering how my marriage had become a funeral. Then came the night he finally spoke. March 15th. I remember because it was my sister's birthday. David walked into our living room where I was reading. No greeting. No preamble. He just stood there and said, "Alina, you're barren. You can never be a mother. I need you to understand that." The word barren hit me like a physical blow. Not infertile. Not struggling with conception. Barren. Like empty land that could never grow anything beautiful. He said it with the same tone he'd used to discuss the weather. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just nodded and said, "I understand." He left the room. I sat there for hours, feeling something inside me die and something else being born. Something colder. Something calculating. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, I called a private investigator. Not because I suspected anything specific, but because David's cruelty felt too practiced. Too confident. Like he knew something I didn't. I also called my divorce attorney, my financial advisor, and my gynecologist for one final appointment. For 3 weeks, I played the perfect broken wife. I acted devastated. Grateful for his honesty. I even suggested marriage counseling, which he dismissed with a wave of his hand. Meanwhile, I was quietly gathering information. The investigators' first report arrived on a Tuesday. David had been having an affair for 8 months. Her name was Jessica, 26 years old, marketing executive, and she was 4 months pregnant. For months. That meant their affair started while he was still pretending to try for children with me, while I was scheduling fertility treatments and blaming myself for our failures. But I didn't confront him. I waited. Don't forget to subscribe and comment your location below. What happened next will shock you. 2 weeks later, David suggested we have dinner at Le Bernardin, the most expensive restaurant in the city. He said he had something important to tell me and that we should invite a few close friends to make it special. He even bought me a new dress. I agreed immediately. Too immediately, probably. But David was so focused on his plan that he didn't notice my enthusiasm. What he didn't know is that I had my own plan. The night before the dinner, I prepared my envelope. Inside were documents that would destroy him completely. Medical records proving I wasn't barren. I'd been pregnant twice during our marriage, but miscarried both times in the first trimester. I never told him because I wanted to surprise him when I made it past 12 weeks. The envelope also contained financial records showing David had been secretly moving money to offshore accounts, credit card statements proving his affair timeline, photos of him and Jessica together, and a legal document I'd prepared with my attorney. That Saturday evening, I arrived at Le Bernardin early. David had reserved the private dining room. Our guests included his best friend Marcus, his business partner Tom, my sister Rachel, and his parents. Everyone we cared about most. David walked in 15 minutes later with Jessica. She was glowing, obviously pregnant, wearing a dress that accentuated her belly. The room went silent. David smiled like he was presenting a gift. "Everyone," he announced, "I'd like you to meet Jessica. We're having a baby." His mother gasped. My sister stood up. Marcus looked physically sick. David's father started to speak but couldn't find words. I smiled. A genuine, peaceful smile. "Congratulations, honey," I said calmly. "How wonderful for you both." Then I placed the envelope on the table. "I brought you a little gift too." David's confidence faltered for just a moment. "Alina, what?" "Open it," I said softly. His hands shook as he tore the envelope. The first document he saw was my medical report. Recent pregnancy test. Positive. Dated just 3 days ago. Please subscribe for more shocking stories like this, and let me know in the comments where you're from. David's face went white. "This can't be real," he whispered. "Keep reading," I said. The next documents were my previous medical records. 2 miscarriages. Both during our marriage. Both kept secret because I wanted to surprise him with good news instead of burdening him with loss. Then came the financial records. Evidence of his theft from our joint accounts. The offshore transfers. The apartment he'd rented for Jessica. All paid for with money he'd stolen from our shared investments. But the final document was the masterpiece. A paternity test request form, pre-signed by me, requesting DNA testing for the child Jessica was carrying. Because according to my private investigator's timeline, there was a very good chance that baby wasn't David's. David was reading everything in front of our friends and family. His parents saw their son exposed as a thief and an adulterer. Jessica saw the man she thought loved her revealed as a pathological liar. Marcus and Tom realized their business partner had been stealing money. The paternity test, I continued calmly, will be very interesting. Because, Jessica, according to my research, you were also dating someone else when you got pregnant. Someone you conveniently forgot to mention to David. Jessica's face crumpled. David looked at her with growing horror. "You told me you ended things with Mark," he said. "I did," she whispered. Eventually. The room erupted. David's mother started crying. His father demanded explanations. My sister looked at me with amazement and something like pride. David was hyperventilating. But I wasn't finished. "David," I said, standing up gracefully, "you called me barren. You humiliated me. You stole from me. You paraded your pregnant mistress in front of our loved ones thinking I was too broken to fight back." I walked around the table to where he sat, shaking. "But here's what you never understood about me. I'm not barren. I'm not broken. I'm just very, very patient." The aftermath was swift and brutal. David's business partnership dissolved when Tom discovered the extent of the financial theft. His parents disowned him when they learned he'd been lying about everything for months. Jessica left him when the paternity test proved the baby wasn't his. Our divorce was finalized within 3 months. I kept the house, most of our investments, and my dignity. David moved back in with his college roommate at age 35, bankrupt and alone. The baby Jessica carried belonged to her ex-boyfriend Mark, who actually stepped up and supported her. They're married now. Sometimes I see their family photos on social media, and they look genuinely happy. As for me, I'm pregnant again. 5 months along. Healthy and strong. The father is someone who loves me exactly as I am. Someone who held me through the miscarriages and never once made me feel less than whole. Subscribe if you believe in karma and comment below where you're watching from. Your support means everything. David tried to contact me once after the divorce. He wanted to explain, to apologize, to ask for forgiveness. I never responded. Because some betrayals don't deserve second chances. What I learned from this experience is that silence can be more powerful than screaming. Preparation is more devastating than impulse. And sometimes, the people who underestimate you give you exactly the ammunition you need to destroy them. If you're going through betrayal right now, remember this. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And never let anyone convince you that you're worth less than you know you are. My name is Alina. I'm 34 years old. And I learned that the word barren says much more about the person who uses it than the person it's used against. Because I was never barren. I was just married to someone who was too empty inside to see my worth.